Mandy and Mike here. So today we're going to talk about bleeding brakes on a dirt modified and the importance of bleeding your brakes. So Mike, can you kind of give us a lowdown on why you should bleed your brakes?
Well, number one, obviously, is you got to bleed the brakes to get the air out so that you can stop. Number two, in racing, it's good to have a nice consistent pedal so that the driver can consistently stop in the same spot or slow down in the same spot consistently for cornering. And then also so that your brake bias between your front and rear brakes is consistent when you adjust it. And you just got to make sure that there's no air in there so that you can stop for accidents.
Yeah, that's definitely important. So without further ado, we're going to get into it and have Mike show you exactly, step by step, how it's done.
So when you begin bleeding brakes, the first thing you want to make sure on the caliper is that you have the bleeders facing up and the crossover tube on the bottom. If they have an internal crossover tube, you won't see that, but you do need to make sure that these are facing at least close to straight up and down. Otherwise, you won't be able to get all the air out of the system. So let's say your bleeders are not facing straight up and down. You got the caliper mounted on the top, like on the fronts of a dirt modified, or a lot of people have them on the top now for left side panhard bar clearance and stuff like that. You want to take the caliper off. And then you want to take an old brake rotor and stick it in the caliper. Here you can see I've taken an old brake rotor and put the caliper on that, and you can zip tie it up somewhere in the car or rest it someplace so that you're ready to start bleeding with the bleeders up in the air. Make sure that all of your brake line connections are pretty tight. You don't want to strip them, but you also don't want them to leak. If you have brand new brake lines, a good technique is to tighten them up pretty tight, back them off, and then kind of snug them up again. It kind of lets the taper set into the fitting a little better that way. If any of your fittings are leaking in the middle of the brake bleeding process, you're going to have to start over on that corner because you're going to get air in there. If you're starting with a fresh system that you haven't had to put any fluid in yet, the easiest way to get started is to open all of the bleeders on all four corners of your car. And if you have older calipers, pull the bleeders right out and stick a tip cleaner through them to make sure that they are clean so that you can know that the fluid's going to be able to come out of there. You can use like a welding tip cleaner to clean them out. Put a pan under each corner of the car so that the brake fluid can drip, and then fill your master cylinders. A new update on Wilwood reservoir caps. They have a bladder in them so that this bleed hole won't let any dirt inside of the brake fluid reservoir. Now you can see this one was pushed all the way out. If that's all the way out, you won't be able to get any more fluid down into the master cylinder. So you need to make sure that this gets folded back into the fashion. And I gotta push it the other way and get it folded the way it's supposed to be. That's what it should look like when you put it back in the cap. When you're all done, you can put this on and tighten it. But while you're bleeding the brakes, I would fill the reservoirs and just set the cap on like that to make sure that you can get air in there. And when you're all done bleeding, don't fill the reservoirs chuck full. Only get them about 3/4, maybe 7/8 full. Now that you have your master cylinder reservoir full and the cap is off and you've got brake fluid now is just, after a while, it'll just start dripping out of all the bleeders if you leave them all loose. That way you know you got fluid in all the lines. The next thing you want to do is just close them. And then open them, watch the fluid come out, and close them. That way you know there shouldn't be hardly any air left in the system. The worst thing people do is they go and start pumping the brake pedal before they fill the system with fluid. And then they start pumping air into the system. And you want to have all these bleeders loose, let it all start dripping out of all four corners on the car, and then make sure that the reservoirs don't run out, and then close them. So as these bleeders are open and the fluid's dripping out, we like to call this gravity bleeding. So nobody's pushing the brake pedal, you're just letting the fluid gravity feed through all the lines and drip out of the bleeders. Just make sure that they're pointed up so that the air can't get in the system. Okay, so now that you've gravity bled the system, you can push on after all your bleeders are closed, you can push on the pedal to see how it is. If it's really spongy, then you've got work to do to bleed them more. You can open them up and let them gravity bleed some more, or else to do it a little quicker and save some fluid, you can close them and do each one at a time. An easy way to tell which corner has air in it is when you push on the pedal, whichever master cylinder moves, the front or the rear, is gonna be the one with the air in it. So if your top front master cylinder is moving a lot, then obviously the air is trapped in the front brake lines, not the rear. So go bleed those and work on those first. The last step to bleeding your brakes is gonna take two people. You're gonna need one person in the car to push the pedal and another person to crack the bleeders. This part is very crucial in what order you do it. If the person in the car lets up on the pedal while the bleeder's open, you can suck air into the system, and that makes this process very tedious, and you just don't want to do that. Depending on how well you gravity bled the system is going to determine how long this next step takes. Now, step one, the person in the car needs to press the pedal down and then say down.
Down.
Step two, crack the bleeder until the fluid comes out with no air, and then close it. And then I say closed. Then you let the pedal up. If you do it in any other order than that, you're probably just gonna suck air into the system.
Down.
Closed. And you wanna do this nice and slow. The faster you pump the pedal, the more chance you have of getting air in the system. So both of your motions down and releasing the pedal should be very slow and fluid. So hopefully some of these tips help you bleed your brakes faster, get the job done easier, take some of the pain away from that job. This is the way I like to do it. Some people do it differently.
Yeah, I mean, between Dad, Billy, and now Mike, I think I know like 3 different ways on how to bleed the brakes. But as long as you do them, that's kind of key.
Yep, the key is not having any air in the system so that you can stop. That's very important in racing, to be able to stop for an accident.
Yeah. So I guys hope you learned something. I'm sure you did with this. It was pretty good, and hopefully you liked it. So make sure to
Like the videos.
I'm just gonna give it all to you.
Subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to the newsletter.
Yes, you got it.
And come back next time.
Thanks, guys.